So, 1619 Project, force-fed in schools. Got this town hall piece written by Humberto Fontava. So we have now, the Biden administration is looking to push policy to teach the 1619 Project in school. So this is what cultural Marxism is. Right here, it is blatant, it is obvious. So Fox News reports, and I quote, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell and fellow Republicans are demanding President Biden's Education Department block a planned history education proposal that invokes the 1619 Project. McConnell and dozens of other GOP colleagues wrote in a letter to the Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardano, and I quote, Americans do not need or want their tax dollars diverted from promoting the principles that unite our nation toward promoting radical ideologies meant to divide us. So I'm going to go into just a little bit of what critical race theory is all about, because that's really what this 1619 Project, what it stems from. And I've actually not fully read into it, but when I read a little bit of this article, I was very, very troubled with some of the origins of critical race theory. It really, what it is it's Marxist. It is nothing more, nothing less than Marxist ideology that is looking to brainwash your children and also anti-American, make them hate the country, have no love of country. So these radical ideas, like those from Professor Ibram Kendi, the big kahuna of critical race theory, somebody that has extolled it for a very long time, which Biden's education department wants to force feed our school children. This is actually from the big kahuna Ibram Kendi, and this is from the playbook of critical race theory. And tell me that this doesn't sound anything like a, Marxism to you. It states, and I quote, in order to truly be anti-racist, you also have to truly be anti-capitalist. The origins of racism cannot be separated from the origins of capitalism. The origins of capitalism cannot be separated from the origins of racism, end quote. So just to begin with, historically, if you actually think about all of the nations, we were the quickest country to abolish something that was considered the rule, not the exception, years ago, slavery. That's the first thing, right? At the inception of it took a very short period of time for us to abolish and eradicate that. And there was an attempt to eradicate it at the very inception of our writing of our Constitution by a lot of our founders at that time. Capitalism has only extolled and has bettered the lives of more people ever in the history. Capitalism, which has really only truly been tried in America, in its fullest sense, has only truly been, achieved in America. What we have now isn't, ideal 100%, but if you look around at who has the most capitalist-like society, it has truly been achieved more over here than any other country. And this has lifted people out of poverty, more people ever than socialism, than communism ever has. And that has nothing to do with whether it's race. It's not race based whether or not you're lifted out of poverty. So, it's not like in America, if you're black, you can't be rich, or if you're Hispanic, you can't be a millionaire. That's not how it works. It is a merit-based system. To the best of its ability, merit-based more than any other country in the entire world. It's not a perfect system. No system is perfect because guess what? It's made by man. Therefore, it has to inherently be flawed like man is. So as for Nicole Hannah-Jones, author of the New York Times 1619 Project, she believes, and I'm quoting, what Mitch McConnell and others like him want is for our children to get a propagandistic, nationalistic understanding of history that is not about facts. It's amazing. So they hate the idea of nationalism as in a patriotism towards your country. They don't want that to happen. They want people to hate their country. And it is so blatantly obvious now that this is cultural Marxism, that the left wing has gone off the deep end, and they are Marxists. They hate America. Just remember, we have these people that have been extolling. They have been extolling Palestine, right? If you do not remember, folks, after 9/11, cut back to a clip, look up 9/11, Palestine after 9/11. They were cheering in the streets in elation. In America, we would never do something like that if 3,000 civilians in another country were killed by a foreign terrorist group. But in Palestine, they loved it. They loved just regular citizens in Palestine. They loved it. They hate Americans. The Hamas hates Americans. Okay, but those people are the ones that are extolled by the now rabid left wing in this country. Now we also have these anti-Americans. And these are the same people that defend criminals. George Floyd, criminal. Should he have died? No. But he is now a deity to the left. Him, Jacob Blake, also criminal. We have two people that are criminals, and they're so vehemently defended by our media class and the left wing in our country. So these people are deeply anti-American. They want the civilian, the regular working class person like you, to be helpless to the government. They don't want you to have firearms. They don't want you to have your freedom of speech. They want to take their message and cram it straight down your throat, and they want you to have no way to answer and fight back against them. So it goes on next. And this is Nicole Hannah-Jones. Now she's talking about Stalinist Cuba. And this is amazing. And he goes on to actually, in this piece, Humberto Fontava from Town Hall. He goes on in this piece to disprove her theories by talking about the education system in Cuba. But she goes on to talk about the education system in Cuba. She stated, and I quote, "Education is the cornerstone of the Cuban Revolution. Nearly everywhere among the magnificent Havana architecture signs speak of equality and liberation through education." So he goes on to really go. He states, so the people of Cuba, this was their literacy rates before the Cuban Revolution, before Castro and his communist regime took over. And these are the rates when Castro goes, we're going to push this huge spending program, and we're going to propagate this to try to increase the literacy rates in this country. Guess what happened, folks? It all fell. The literacy rates dropped substantially because he had his communist-like government scheme set up. And anything the government tries to do, they fail at. And every single, especially in a socialist communist system like that, and I use those two words as if they're tantamount to each other interchangeably, because that's really what it is. Socialism turns into full-on communism. Socialism really is communism. So then he goes on, he talks about Vladimir Lenin, also devout communist. He was right before Stalin. If some of you are familiar with World War II, there's Leningrad in Russia, which is named, and that was a huge battle between the Russians and the Germans during World War II, that was named after Vladimir Lenin. So he states, and this is a quote straight from him, "Give me 4 years to teach the children, and the seed I have sown will never be uprooted." End quote. So it really is. When you look at what is propagated and promulgated by the left wing in this country, and you also think historically what the communists, the Russian communists openly admit, the Communist Manifesto, the Karl Marx booklet, really the playbook to communism, instilling it in the country. There is total consistencies right there with what our left wing is doing, especially the anti-Americanism. And I was listening to a podcast Ben Shapiro had on, I can't remember the name of this writer, I'm drawing a blank. Something Horowitz. Daniel Horowitz, maybe? He's an older man, probably in his 90s if I had to guess. He was a communist his entire life. His parents actually, raised him as a communist. And when the Black Panther Party rolled around, he raised tons of money for the Black Panther Party. Black Panther Party went on to kill his one of his very good friends. And when he said to his other friends that were also part of the Communist Party, he said, the Black Panther Party, I think they killed her. And his friend said, well, blame that on that's because of white racism. So really there's just, cultural Marxism shows blame is spread out amongst everybody in the society. It is the fault of the white racist that the Black Panther goes and kills a innocent white person. And that's really, in this case, with the communists and the left wing, the AOCs of the world, the Rashida Tlaibs, the blame is on Israel for Hamas shooting and firing rockets at them, and then, in result, their civilians getting killed in the crossfire. That is somehow the fault of Israel. because Israel's the oppressor. In communism, in Marxism, there's always an oppressor. It always comes from somebody that's in power. There's always an oppressor, and then there's always a victim. That's how it always works. That's how, because by doing that, you are able to unify behind one origin, behind one point of view, that there's an oppressor and then there's a victim, or I guess somebody that's being suppressed. And that's really what the left extols. This is what they've been doing now for years, and now it's becoming much more evident in our politics. They are Marxists.